Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Daybreak Fantasy Football News Show. I am your host, Jim Day. You can follow me on Twitter at FantasyTaz. And once again, I want to let you know that we are a proud member of the Full Time Fantasy Podcast Network. We are now at 14 podcasts strong and growing, over 26 hours of weekly programming. We're really starting to knock it out of the park, people. So pay attention because it's going to be everywhere. So let's get into today's news. It is Thursday, June 6th. Uh, it is a remembrance of D-Day. So let's, give a shout out to all members of the armed forces from D-Day or even today, and, tell them thank you for your service because that was one of the pivotal turning points of World War II. And while it was a deadly meeting, it really did change the tide of the war. So thank you to all who were involved, and thank you to all who served today. So let's get into today's news. Um, we're going to start with one right now. Last year's rookie Rashad Penny was highly sought after in last year's fantasy drafts, thinking he was going to be the main guy in Seattle. Turned out that Chris Carson took that job. Rashad Penny just wasn't quite there, although he did come on towards the end of the season. And he's drawing rave reviews right now. Seattle offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer is saying that, Penny has really done a great job getting himself in shape, really tearing up these practices, being more mature in how he handles all this. And he's getting a lot of extra playing time because Chris Carson is still recovering from knee surgery. So, Chris Carson is expected to be ready, but this is a very run heavy team, one of the most in the league. And both of these guys are going to have a big part of this offense. So Penny is definitely presenting good value right now. He's currently coming off the boards with an FFWC ADP of 7.03 in 12 team leagues. Meanwhile, Carson is going at 4.12. So, Penny definitely represents better value at this point because you can get him almost 3 rounds later. Look, this is a kid that was highly thought of coming out of college. Didn't really get off to a great start last year, but it seems like he's put his head on. He's working hard. He could be a big surprise this year, especially if Chris Carson continues to battle injuries. So keep your eyes on Rashad Penny and don't be afraid to take a chance on him. I think it'll pay off this year. I think he ends up being a nice, running back 3 with the absolute chance of being a running back 2 if he can take that full-time starting job from Chris Carson. Next up, Aaron Rodgers says he wants to throw more to Davante Adams. Now, Davante Adams had the second most targets in the league last year with 169. So, what's more? Are we looking at 200 targets? Rodgers says that Adams is always open, and I just got to keep feeding him the ball and getting him the ball. And, we saw that last year. Absolutely. I mean, it was Adams or bust for Rodgers. But, they have a changeover in coaches, changeover in offensive philosophy. They need to get these young wide receivers more involved. And, I expect that to happen. But that doesn't mean he can't continue to feed Davante Adams. Davante Adams, let's face it, he's coming off the board at 1.08. So it's not like he's a big surprise. He's not surprising anybody. I can't see his number going up any higher than 1.08. Just keep in mind that Rodgers is already talking about him. This is OTA news. Take it for what it's worth. These are all guys that are right now running around in shorts and T-shirts with no pads. So it is what it is. This time of year, it's kind of tough to come around any hard news. But, the fact that Aaron Rodgers is talking about him is a good thing. But then let's turn it over. Aaron Rodgers is also talking about Marquez Valdez-Scantling and how he's had a great, fantastic spring so far. And he is the favorite to win the number 3 job behind Adams. Behind Adams and man, I'm drawing a blank. Sorry, guys. And Geronimo Allison. Wow, that just skipped my mind. So, hey, a number 3 in this offense with Rodgers should be a very profitable position. He's currently coming off the board. Marcus Valdez-Scantling is coming off the board at 13-11. So, in the 13th round, he has no real cost to you to take a shot on. And if he actually does hit, if he does become that solid number 3 option, this is a good place to try and take the shot on him. Last year, he had 6 games in double-digit numbers. That number could definitely increase this year. So let's look see what happens with Scantling and the other young receivers they have on the team. Equanimus St. Brown and Jamon Moore, both involved, could see more. We'll have to see how that comes into play. Next up, another one, Adrian Peterson, once again, putting the goals at a very high level. Now, I will say this, coming into last year when he came to Washington, I didn't really expect him to do much. I really thought Darius Geis was going to tear it up. And then, of course, he got hurt, and Peterson became basically the main back. And even with all the injuries that team had on the offensive line, the wide receivers, the quarterbacks, he still managed to put up 1,000 yards at 34 years old. Well, 33 at that point, but now he's 34. Um, Now he's coming out and saying that he wants to do 2,000 yards. Yeah, okay. He did it once in 2012. That was 7 years ago. I love the moxie. I love the confidence. But Peterson, I'm sorry, I just don't see it happening. Geis looks to be coming back. He should be healthy at some point soon and get on the field and get some practice in. But right now, it looks like Peterson will be that lead back until Geis is fully ready to roll, which may be a few games into the season, maybe even longer, depending on Geis not having any kind of setback. So this is going to be an interesting point, whether or not this actually comes together. And Peterson, look, I love the fact that he's striving for 2,000 yards, but if he gives me another 1,000-yard season and I take the chance on him, I mean, he's coming off the board at the end of the 13th round. At that point, it's a no-brainer to take a shot on him there, especially since we haven't seen Geis on the field since he tore his ACL last August. So keep your mind on that. A lot of stuff going on there. And then last but not least, a name to throw in the back of your mind for really deep leagues at the end of a draft, Seattle wide receiver Jerron Brown. Again, Seattle offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer is just raving about the offseason that Brown has had. Now, I know they brought in the rookies in DK Metcalf and Gary Jennings, but they both have some things to learn. Jerron Brown has a little bit of history here. He knows the offense. He knows the team knows him. There is a decent chance that he could end up winning that number 2 role. And if he does, the value would be pretty good. The problem, well, not even the problem. The thing is that he's not even being drafted in almost any league at this point. He has no ADP at the FFWC. So this is a guy that literally you could take in the last round and hope that this comes to fruition. If it doesn't, so what? You didn't invest any draft capital in him, but he could provide really good turnaround for you. So again, keep your eyes on Jerron Brown and see what he does in the preseason. This is a guy that could really surprise. And that's it, folks. There's really not a lot of news today. Hopefully, we'll start getting more. Once we get into training camp, we'll get more and better news. Somebody will get arrested. Somebody will get in a fight. Give us something better to talk about. But this OTAs are always rough. But that's the news of the day. This has been the Daybreak Fantasy Football News Show. Again, I am your host, Jim Day. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyTaz. And we are, again, a member of the full-time fantasy podcast network that is growing every day. Thank you, people, and have a great day.